However, my biggest struggle has been my own people. But of course, I knew that from the beginning because I knew that there was a need to create a financial identity because of a damaged value system that we have. And knowing that, I knew that I already knew the struggles that I was going to face. I saw the struggles that came before me. I saw the struggles of other leaders that have tried to do something similar, maybe not a currency, but they've tried to create communities and stuff like that, and things have been broken up from the inside. So I kind of anticipated that from day one with Guapcoin, that I was gonna face, I guess, what we like to call amongst ourselves the haters. So now that we've kind of been making some tremendous progress as of lately, because currently right now we have about 50 masternode holders, and that's what we call Guap governors, and this is our governance. And we have 50 nodes out there, we have wallets out there now, we have everything that's moving towards decentralization, so we're hitting goals. And yes, it has taken me almost 3 years. But now that we're hitting goals, now that's when I'm starting to, like I said, face the heat within the community, and that is what has gotten me emotional, I guess you could say. You know, because it's like, our community does not understand blockchain, does not understand crypto, does not understand decentralization. When I first created Guapcoin, somebody immediately tried to run behind me and trademark it. Now, that's not what happens in decentralization because nobody is going to own this. You're not going to have to go to somebody. Like Bitcoin, you could start your own Bitcoin business. You don't have to go to anybody and get permission to use the name Bitcoin. So you're talking about decentralization as something that I do not own. But now I have to fight for ownership because other people are going to run up under me and try to take ownership. So a lot of stuff, a lot of lack of education in terms of what we're really trying to do. Like, yes, I'm really trying to do this for the community. I don't want this to be me and my company. I want this to be our currency. So I had to say that first. You know, so if anybody brings up conversation about Guapcoin, I would appreciate that people take ownership of it and own it as their own. People come to me now and they say, well, you know, it would be cool if you did this, and it'd be cool if you did this. I'd be like, do it. I'm not gonna stop you, and as a matter of fact, I'll support you. I'll advise you. I'll tell you what you need to do. You know, I've started a number of companies under Guapcoin, like GuapPay and other things like that to help facilitate the process. But again, I don't want to be the one doing that. I want people to take Guap and run with it because that's the true nature of decentralization and what Bitcoin really is about. But of course, Bitcoin, you know, I have my little things about that as well. I believe that Bitcoin is a template, just like the gentleman said, in terms for self-determination. Bitcoin is the template to show us the way to go because we've already kind of missed that boat. If you don't know, Bitcoin is a luxury coin. It is like akin to gold. So we don't all run around holding gold and trading gold because it's kind of luxury. And the same thing kind of goes for Bitcoin because Bitcoin is slow. You know, the network is slow. That's why we don't really use it in day-to-day, and that's why we now have alternatives that are faster and better to use in a small business environment. Bitcoin was not made for that. Now, I don't know if they consciously made it that way, but looking at the technology, it definitely was not made to facilitate mass commerce on a quick level, you know, where I'm going in the store and I'm buying. There had to be other things that would come and be born from Bitcoin, and there is. So a part of my presentation, of course, is creating coins and value. So after Bitcoin, you had what was called altcoins, in which Guapcoin is an altcoin. And these coins came out with different algorithms that they stressed would give more value to cryptocurrency. So for instance, Litecoin. Litecoin came out with a faster algorithm. Dash came out with a privacy algorithm. So all of these algorithms started building up, and now we have coins that are market ready and small business ready. So point to Dash. Dash is a cryptocurrency that is now being used in Venezuela because Venezuela suffers from hyperinflation and their dollar isn't worth anything. So what if you wake up and your dollar is not worth anything? Well, that's definitely a reality for the United States, if you don't know. So we have many, many bases by which we need to create our own currency and to have our own financial identity. Because now we could say there's a risk, there's a huge risk. It's more than just helping our community and solving some of our community problems. Now it's a real live global risk in terms of next week, will I be able to buy bread with $1? You know what I mean? Or will I be able to pay my bills and stuff like that? So there's an argument for cryptocurrency. And also the other gentleman mentioned in regulations about some of the laws that are out in terms of money transfer. Well, that's great, but they have not yet identified cryptocurrency as money. They don't recognize it as money. So, because guess what? If they recognize it as money, they're in trouble. The bank system is in trouble. The central bank is in trouble. The Federal Reserve is in trouble. So they're dancing around the idea of recognizing cryptocurrency as money, and that works to our benefit. So if you do want to create your own currency, which is your legal right, you actually can create a currency. People came up to me in the beginning and literally wanted to turn me in, shackles, because I created a currency and I wanted it to be a currency. They wanted to lock me up, and this is not white people. This is black people. So we do not know a lot about money, and that goes to Stan. We don't know anything about currency and the creation of which. So I'll leave you with one tidbit. If you're thinking about creating your own currency, you can create your own currency. It just cannot look like the dollar. You cannot use the dollar symbol, which I found out later on because we were using and took it off. Can't use the dollar symbol, and it cannot outpace the dollar value, meaning you can't create a dollar or your currency and it be equal to a dollar. It has to be another value. And so, but you can create your own currency, and people have done it. And people have gotten in trouble, but they haven't gotten in trouble because they created a currency. They got in trouble for other things. So there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to currencies, cryptocurrencies, especially in our community. Like even in the entertainment industry, a lot of entertainers got in trouble for supporting various ICOs out there. And now they're like, oh, crypto, I'm not gonna do that, because they're not educated. And that's one of the biggest points is we have to educate, because this does give us a real opportunity to make an economic impact on our communities. This is reparations as far as I'm concerned. And I knew that day one when I created GuapCoin that this was where we were going to. This is what this was leading to. And yes, creating a currency is legal, but technically it's like financial war with the bankers. I'm probably not the most, liked person in the banking community, but believe it or not, the central banks have approached me to create a cryptocurrency for them. So if you think that they're not taking this seriously, they are. And the playing field is leveraged because they don't know very much more than you do. Not the banking systems, not the governments, not pretty much anybody out there. This is a level playing field. So that also gives us an advantage of coming in and creating a financial identity, which is what we need. And what is a financial identity? Well, think about it. When the Asians come here and they make their money, they're gonna send it and they're gonna convert it back to their money. It's gonna go to their country. A lot of other countries, even Africans, there's certain Africans can come here from different countries and they can send it back to their currency. But the African American, which, yes, is with GWAP has been my primary, and everybody else is along with it, but my primary has been the African American, because the African American does not have a financial identity, which is why we don't reinvest in our communities, because investing is painful to us. If someone comes to us in our family and says, I want to start a business, can you give me $20,000? It's like we got shot. We're like, ugh. You know, and immediately we're thinking about the loss, because we don't know the value of investment, because we don't get to see it. So I created GWAP Coin also with the premise in mind that this is data, this is something that we're going to be able to see. And when you can see, and data is currency as well, when you can see and you can leverage data, you have power. It's the numbers that the corporations care about. Now, I didn't create GWAP Coin because I wanted to be just an autonomous financial system that operated on its own. Yes, I do want Walmart to accept GWAP. Because if Walmart accepts GWAP, then we can see how much GWAP is being spent at Walmart. And so can Walmart. So they have to acknowledge the fact that they met their quarterly goal because of the GWAP earnings that came in. They have to acknowledge that. And then if they have to acknowledge that, they have to take that onto the socio-political field and the economic field. And they have to do more for the community, whatever the community says, because the numbers are what counts. So this is a very, very powerful tool, and it extends far beyond cryptocurrency. It extends far beyond money. It extends to data by which globally African Americans account for the most valuable data on the planet, because our data is missing. So our data comes with a great price tag. So if we own our data by way of currency, that's another revenue stream that we have. That's another tool we have to leverage for economic power. So there's so much that this door opens for us. But again, it begins with education. So this is a great time to have these conversations with lawmakers, because lawmakers are talking about reparations. And really, they're talking about reparations and nobody knows what that looks like. Nobody has a clue as to what that's going to look like reasonably. And this could be a discussion that goes on and on and on and on, or we can wind up getting a solution that really doesn't make any sense, because a couple of $1 billion doesn't make any sense. Not to me at all. But the funding that we can create with our own crypto platforms does, because I've seen it. We've seen the power of Ethereum. We've seen the funding platforms that have come from Ethereum. We've seen they've created funding, lending platforms. They have whole lending platforms built on top of crypto. Full-fledged lending. I can lend somebody this money. This money could be generated directly from the blockchain. It could be public. Everyone could see it. It could be fair. We have a way of voting for it. We have a way of distributing it. It doesn't have to come out of anybody's pocket. And no one has to argue about something was done shady, because that's what the blockchain eliminates, that. So, again, very important that we bring this as a platform for reparations, a platform for addressing our overall economic condition. Because, I mean, I don't see any other way, and I'm a little smart. Now, in terms of building value, and even within GWAP, that is something that is a lesson I learned from the moment I was born. So it starts with the values that my family gave me. And then it continues with the values that I give my family. Yes, I have 8 kids, and my 8 kids give me values. They all some little rich 8 kids running around. They're very wealthy. And they have taught me a lot about wealth, because they just feel privileged to it. They're like, I'm supposed to have this. You know, not that I want it. So when I give them what they need, you know, this is what they're supposed to have. This is a new breed of children coming in. So I also learned from my children that it's time for something like GWAP Coin. But in terms of building value, I had to put a lot of sweat. I had to put a lot of energy. I had to put a lot of hurt. I had to put a lot of emotions into it to get to where I am. 3 years, almost 3 years later. There's a lot of mistakes. And that's another thing when it comes to our community. We tend to be what I like to call, what do you say? We overthink things. That's why we don't get things out. We're perfectionists. We're perfectionists because as a geek in the geek community, I see some of the mess they put out. I mean, we all saw Facebook when it first came out. I see some of the mess they put out, and they work on it as they go. They fix bugs. That's what's called bug fixes, this, that, and the third. But when we're trying to get things out, we have the block that we have, like it has to be perfect, it has to be right, because everybody's gonna be looking at me, especially because I'm black, all of those things. Those are all of those things I had to take and divorce myself from, because that doesn't fit in the tech world. The tech world is about breaking stuff. That's why I like to call my STEM students and stuff. I'm like, y'all here to break stuff and then put it back together. So don't be afraid. I used to work for the government, and I'm fixing stuff people broke, and I broke stuff, you know, major stuff. But the idea is that you fix it. This is what geeks do. Geeks don't automatically just have the solutions. They work towards the solutions. So it's a different type of thinking. But in terms of creating a cryptocurrency, I've had to kind of relay that to people. Like, yeah, this may not work, but we won't know until we do it. This is not the type of thing where I can tell you this is going to absolutely work this way. It doesn't work like that. You know, we could launch at block 1,000, you know, block 150,000, it just stops. You know what I mean? It gets stuck. And then we have to come up with solutions. And I've been there. I did that 3 times. I had 3 stuck blocks. And I'll admit it. I'll admit all of that. Had to fix that. Spent months sometimes. At one point, I spent 2 months straight in front of a computer trying to figure out how to get over this obstacle. So again, we gotta be more, if we are gonna do something like this, we gotta be more loving and accepting and open, and also participant. How can I help? How can I fix that? You know what I mean? Because that's what a community is about, and that's what blockchain is. Blockchain is our communities, communities within communities. And these communities step in, and people step in and say, this is what I can do. Maybe I can work on this. I had my first person actually input something to my GitHub. And I wanted to cry, kiss this man, do a dance, pay him. I was amazed. I was like, this is it. And that was a milestone for me, because I was like, yes, this is what needs to happen. People need to take ownership and do something and carry this on so that we can do what Bitcoin is doing currently now. And we can. So I don't know where I am right now, we're talking, but do you have any questions? Okay, sure.
How'd you come up with the name? What's it represent?
Well, I'm from New York, you know, I'm from Brooklyn. And I wanted it to have a name that people would instantly understand that this was money. So people know, at least in New York, you know, and in the South, you know, they know guap is money, you know, so I settled with that. Mm-hmm.
What challenges did you have to, you know, get people to understand the value of your coin before, you know, how did you communicate the value you knew you had for it?
The beautiful thing is, I haven't had that problem. People have given me value. It was amazing. It's amazing to see somebody not be able to get into their wallet and almost have a fit because they have 1,000 coins and they want to get to their coins. It was amazing to me. And I know that I had to do what I can to uphold that value. You know what I mean? Because I'm a giving kind of person. If it was up to me, I'll just give away coins, but I can't do that. I can give away a few. Like for all of you, I would love for you to go to the web wallet, and I'm definitely gonna airdrop 50 coins today. Gonna do that. So it's wallet.guapcoin.com. You can go to guapcoin.com, click on wallet, register, get a wallet. I'm gonna do the airdrop tonight. So that's the type of person I am, naturally. I'm just the type of person that would give stuff away, but I know you can't do that because part of the value of it is that people want to earn it, people want to buy it, people want to invest, people want to do that, and you got to preserve that. So that's something that I personally learned about value. They taught me about value.
Were you able to connect with any Ghanaian banks to?
Yes, actually this week I have a meeting with the head of the Bank of Ghana.
So are you going to try to do SETI reserves?
Well, I don't know. My main purpose with working with the bank right now is getting the exchange open. So we haven't discussed GuapCoin yet, but I was over there, I did speak about GuapCoin, so people are aware of GuapCoin. I've been welcomed in Africa in terms of GuapCoin. They're like, you need to bring this here. Very much so. Door wide open. But again, you know, my family is here, and my family is there. And I want to get my family, I just want to tackle the tougher problem right now. and I certainly want to extend it to being a global thing. But I think over here, I think we're incredible. So I think that we are the global influencers. You know what I mean? So I know that if we spend a little bit more time and effort investing in ourselves over here, it's going to be a really incredible thing.
All right. Thank you very much, Tavonia. Can we give her a round of applause?
Thank you.
So, back to the MC.
All right. Once again, Tavonia Evans, thank you very much. Hey, look, it's time now for another one of our thought tanks, a round table. And it's going to be on the topic, digital identities for sovereignty and privacy. So, Olayinka? Say that again? Give her a big hand, everybody. I don't want to step all over your name. And so the rest of the panel, please come up. And everybody get your notes out. Sharpen your number 2 pencils. And give these people a nice round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right. My name is Olayinka Odeniran. I am the proud founder of Black Women Blockchain Council. Black Women Blockchain Council was created to help promote and increase the amount of Black women in the blockchain space. We also do not want to be left behind, so we created a space for ourselves to make sure that we're educated and also promote the different projects that are being built on the blockchain technology by Black women. You can find us at bwbc.io. And my background, I come in the way of compliance. I've been a regulatory compliance officer for over 16 years. I also have a master's in cybersecurity, and I recently passed my CISM exams. Thank you.
My name is Adrian Gardner. I am a recovering senior executive from the Federal Service. I left Federal Service about 120 days ago, if we're counting. In that, yeah, I know, especially. In my position, I've held positions as CIO of FEMA, CIO of NASA Goddard, CIO of the National Weather Service. Also led cybersecurity at Department of Energy in the early days of a lot of the advanced persistent threat kind of threats across our networks. But now today what I'm doing is I actually started a foundation called the Smart Tech Nexus Foundation, which is meant to empower communities to empower themselves. And this whole notion of identity is an important discussion that we need to have right now, because each one of you has one. And you have to remember, when you click agree to the terms and conditions on every website you go to, you're giving up that right. So just letting you know, I'm starting with that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Damon Bryant. I'm a Howard alum, a graduate of the class 1995. So that's a while ago. I'm also a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology from the University of Central Florida. I helped to redesign the graduate record exam for those of you who have taken the test to get into graduate school. That's the test that you have to take by the Educational Testing Service. I'm also one of the first creators of the computer adaptive testing system. So I know about narrow artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. With the acceleration of technology, we are being displaced at a rate that's unprecedented in the history of the world. Why? It's the case because this technology is coming into place. It's efficiency, capitalism in its purest form. How do we begin to train and retrain individuals to enter into this global workforce? What are the knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics that you need in order to compete? At the same time, how do you begin to, if you're not starting your own business, work in another organization and at the same time not be discriminated against? When you think about applying to jobs, there was a study published coming out of the University of Chicago and MIT on who's more employable, Emily or Greg or Jamal and Lakeisha. Now, when you submit your resume to a top tech company or Fortune 100 company, these resume screeners, some of them are automated. At the same time, you still have a lot of humans reviewing the resume. When they see Howard University, that's a clear sign. That trash, trash, trash. When they see your name, Jamal or Lakeisha, you're not being even considered to make it to the first stage of the interview process. How do you begin to protect your identity in order to compete in a global workforce? And at the same time, begin to skill and reskill, given that technology will change faster than the skills that you can acquire. So this thing about artificial intelligence, and you have all these computer scientists saying, oh yeah, I know about artificial intelligence. We don't even know what human intelligence is. We don't even know the capabilities of what humans can actually achieve. And that's my research. That is my applied focus. I've received millions of dollars in funding to build out institutions and build out organizations for learning and skill acquisition. The organization that I've recently started in the blockchain space is XChange, where we are building the next generation of artificially intelligent systems to help individuals acquire knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics, while at the same time having your sovereign assets. And so that is your digital certificates, your diplomas, all the skills training that you've completed, and all the work experience that you have, and the ability to determine whether or not you want your employer to know who you are. This is something that will take place. People want to take back their identity. Facebook has made that abundantly clear. So this is one of the things that I'm helping to do within the blockchain-based space by taking back your sovereignty, taking back your identity, and actually at the same time acquiring some knowledge, skills, and abilities and other characteristics in order to compete in the global workforce. Thank you.
All right. See, my name is Rob Campbell. I'm a consultant, cybersecurity. I do cybersecurity compliance for organizations like financial and healthcare. And I just had a thought when we were talking about identity here. And how many have heard of quantum computers? Oh, wow, excellent. Okay, so we're talking about identity. Now we're talking about something that will strip away the total identity of everybody on the planet if we're not prepared for it. Currently, I'm involved in international peer review research, working with the NIST, which is National Institute of Standards and Technology. That's one of the organizations involved. And we are doing research and development, testing, validation, and verification on what we call post-quantum algorithms. These are algorithms that would supposedly protect your identity and everything else you have. We have a lot of people who've heard of quantum computers, so maybe I don't need to talk too much about what that is and the threat, I guess, unless there are any. But very, very quickly, essentially everything everything that you do, from banking to emails to web browsing to anything you want to store is open to the threat of quantum computers. And so we've been surprised about the progress of quantum computer research, and that's in the commercial world. They don't talk about the classified world. I'm an ex-military intelligence officer. I worked classified R&D, research and development for many, many years. Space engineering is one of my specialties. Computer science is another, and electronics and so on. So you don't hear about what the real capabilities are, and it is not just the U.S., but we have everybody. It's a global race. We have North Korea, we have got Russia, we've got China. China is probably one of the main ones at the moment. They're doing this kind of research in space. They proved it several years ago. So who knows what's going on behind closed doors. So anyway, just to kind of introduce myself, I'm working quantum computing research and algorithms. I present internationally. Did it in London. I'm going to Rome here pretty soon, and some of the other places around the world. But I bring this up in this blockchain conference because when we talk about crypto, some people who are not necessarily technical, they confuse crypto, the currency itself, with the actual algorithms that produce it and make it possible. So what I'm talking about is what protects your phone calls or your emails, or if you're working in classified or sensitive information. There are algorithms that make that happen, and that's crypto, that's cryptography that we work on. And so some of us practice breaking the cryptography, and some of us, the highly theoretical ones, they come up with these ideas. And but they're really, really different kind of people. I mean, like, you look at their equations, they're pages and pages long, and they say, oh yeah, this will work, but they don't have a practical grounding. Like, okay, a software engineer or a hardware engineer needs to take that theory and your equations and put it into hardware and software and make it work. Program hardware devices. They don't understand that aspect. So then you have the software engineers and the hardware engineers. They may try to take these algorithms, and then you have those who just run testing on these algorithms once they implement it. Then you have people who do assessments, risk assessments, and that sort of thing. So my whole point is that there's a whole ecosystem associated with these technologies. Blockchain, I mean, there's nothing that new about blockchain, because what you're looking at is three technologies put together. First of all, distributed databases have been around for decades. Public key encryption and encryption algorithms have been around for decades. Fault tolerance, meaning that you survive a catastrophic event and you still can run your network, been around for decades. So all that they've done in 2009 and 2008 or earlier is put all these things together. So you got three technologies put together. So nothing mysterious about it. We can all do it. We can get our heads around it and understand it. We have to put it in the proper framework. So I don't want to take any more time, but I just want to introduce myself. Okay.
Thank you, Rob. All right, so as your moderator, I will ask you some questions. So when we think about blockchain, a lot of people, well, those who are less knowledgeable assume that your identity is anonymous when you're trading. Can you guys explain to the audience exactly what's behind this technology when it comes to making your identity anonymous? Because I think earlier we asked there was a question about cryptography. So since we have the experts here, can you please explain it to the layman's term so that individuals will understand a little bit better?
So I'll even challenge the question whether you can be anonymous. It goes back to my statement earlier, when you're clicking on various websites and you basically agree to the terms and condition or cookies on those websites, you're actually giving up your identity. And so, you know, if you look at the EU and its General Data Protection Regulation that's out there, and now I think it's in question because I don't know what the future of the EU is, not to be political, but I think that they got it right from the standpoint of what they're trying to do there to protect individual identity. And so this whole notion of, you know, the technology behind it, I think that there's a concern that I have that I don't think the technology is at a maturation point where you can actually do that, where you can actually anonymize yourself from a perspective. You can decentralize the identity. Again, you can go, you can use different facets of blockchain to do that. But I also look at then, you also look at from a perspective of, you know, the actual authorization, the authentication of that identity. I'm concerned on how that's all going to transpire. So for me, it's still, in my mind, hazy.
Sure. So I just want to make a clarification around like some of the basic cryptocurrencies that out when you think about Bitcoin. It's not really anonymous. It's pseudonymous in a sense. Someone like a data scientist like myself could pull down like the transactions and begin to trace. And actually there's trace the hashes, all the transactions, and determine what has gone to how many transactions has gone to a particular person. And the thing is, there's research, government funding that has gone into tracking your transactions. That's a fact. At the same time, if there are other currencies such as Dash, PIVX, or Exchange, like in our currency, there's this particular protocol called the Zero Coin Protocol. I think Ethereum was attempting to implement it at some point in time. There's some quirks with it, but at the same time, to the degree that the Zero Coin Protocol is successful in anonymizing transactions where they're still able to track you is on the on-ramps. The on-ramps and off-ramps. It's the exchanges. So to the degree that you have to go through KYC, AML, and submit your identification, they don't care what you do in the interim, but then once you come off and you're just like, okay, I want to transfer into fiat, whatever that fiat currency actually is, that's where they're able to make transactions. And the government makes requests from those on-ramps and off-ramp exchanges. So just to be clear, the protocol, the Zero Coin Protocol, in theory is a good protocol. In the implementation of it, there's been some quirks. But at the end of the day, even if you're able to implement Zero Coin, unless you're staying totally in crypto, they're getting you on off-ramps. So that's the way they're still able to track and trace.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think you're talking about zero knowledge proof, right? Algorithms, which Zcash and Dash and some of those others use those, but I'm a cryptocurrency miner too. I started mining years ago, but there was always problems with implementation, and it didn't work. The actual covert address never really worked. But I mean, the other problems with issues with latency, meaning that it takes a long, long time. You know how Bitcoin takes a long, long time to get a transaction through. But things are getting better. Cryptographers around the world are working on it, and we have conferences coming up, and people are making breakthroughs all the time. I also teach blockchain, how to build them and how to hack them. And so what I would do if I wanted to find out who you were, first of all, your public address, public key, okay, I can track how many transactions you make going to your wallet. I know, I can look and see. It's public knowledge. But if I want to find out exactly who you are, I can do things the government in our business and others in our business, right? We want to be free and, not being under 24/7 surveillance. So, I am, and many people like me who have that philosophy, we're working hard to stay ahead, and we are. I think we are. The government, by the time they figure out what's going on now, then, it'll be 5 or 10 years like it took them to get to Bitcoin. But anyway, yeah, you can hack these blockchains if you know how, but Bitcoin is like a public; anybody can get on. And then you've got other blockchains where they're like permissioned. You have to have permission to get on. They call them private or enterprise. A lot of enterprise blockchains. But again, the threat is so. Here's how it works. You have a public key, which would be tied for your wallet. Like say, okay, I owe you 5 Bitcoins, and I send it to your address. Well, in cryptography, there's mathematical operations going on. In order to get a public key for your address, I have a secret key. And through that computation, I give a public key. I say, oh, well, I can give you my public key because a conventional computer would probably take 500 years to crack that cryptography. But I bring up quantum computers, and it will take a matter of seconds, where I can take your public key, do mathematical calculations, and get your private key. So I can masquerade as you, I can steal all of your coins, or I can do anything I want. I got your private key from your public key. So this is why this is such an international push to find something that will be safe. Not just blockchain, but just everything. Internet, all your communications, everything. Phones, satellites, everything.
On that note, I think let's take a question. I know we can keep
But it's
talking
ways
about
off.
cryptography, so we'll just have one question. One
All
question.
right, Chris?
So, you guys are experts. Is there a way to establish 100% anonymity without breaking chain of custody, in the sense that chain of custody is meant to preserve the legality of the transaction? So, is it possible to have 100% anonymity without breaking chain of custody? Theoretically.
Anything is possible theoretically, but.
Yeah, my response to what he was saying was, and where the government has gone is, and they've increased the number of factors that it's required, right? You're really talking 2-factor, right? And then we start going 3-factor, 4-factor, 5-factor, so on and so forth. But how many factors can you have, right? And to then, again, not bog down the system from a perspective of the speed of that transaction, which was also what you said. So one of the challenges that we have, I think, in general is that I would say theoretically, yes, that's where we're headed, but in reality, I don't think we're there yet, right? But that, again, I think that's also some of the research you're doing. That is an opportunity, right? And I guess what I would say in response to this audience is, if you listen to the ambassador and her activities, what she's planning to do, we need to tightly couple this whole notion of identity, security, with her efforts, right? Because if we can do it in that community early on, because right now we've got to break a lot of China for it to happen in U.S. markets, European markets, so on and so forth. This is an emerging market. So we should be thinking about how do we now think about the best research that we can apply to the blockchain implementations across the AU from a perspective of protecting that investment.
And I'd just like to state from an unclassified perspective. So right now, that technology just in unclassified, it's not there yet in terms of quantum computing. It's not there. So, however, it could be the case that there are 1 or 2 organizations in the world that currently possess the technology.
Right.
If they possess the technology, why would they use it to find out how many Bitcoins that you have to potentially leak that the quantum technology does exist? So you have to think about the target at the same time.
Well,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. That was very interesting. Round of applause.
You're frightening me. Wow. Quantum computers, quantum math. Good gracious. Let's give them a big hand, everybody. Olayinka Odeniran, Rob Campbell, Dr. Damon Bryant, and Adrian Gardner. Okay, and we're back. All right. All right. And can you send questions to the app and still reach those guys? Can you still send questions to the app? Don't use that mic. All right. Okay, so now it's time for another interesting panel. And this time the discussion will be on crypto and cannabis and agro-tech revolution. And give them a big round of applause. Ian Connors, Lamar Wilson, and Justin Redrick, along with Corey Barnett. They're going to talk about crypto and cannabis. Give them a big round of applause, everybody. Come on.
Hey. Should we kick it off?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think he's going to MC.
Check.
But that might have been
Check.
That might have been it. Should we just kick it off?
Microphone check. 1,
All
2,
right.
1,
Thank
2.
you. You got a microphone? Is it on? Thanks everyone for coming. I'm Ian Conyers. I work with a company. Well, actually, this is the second annual Black Bitcoin Summit. Let's give it up for that, right? 2 years strong. I gotta thank the team, John, that they put together, as well as Sinclair Skinner. For those of you who are from DC or just from the diaspora, you know that he's been committed, born in the struggle, making sure that folks are being liberated around the world financially, mentally. I'll never forget leaving a campaign in 2012, and if those of you who've been in DC, you remember the Stop Disrespecting My President, the Noops and Qs united for Barack Obama in 2012. He took this tour bus around the United States of America, literally fundraising on his own without any official endorsement. And it's just phenomenal to see his ideas come into fruition for so many people. So we'd be remiss without thanking the sponsors as well. So I work right now for, a little background, I'm from Detroit. I spent a term in the Michigan legislature as a state senator representing Detroit, Michigan, my hometown. It was an honor. I worked on transportation primarily. Michigan, if you looked in the last election cycle, the voters bipartisan went to the ballot and did something very excitedly. They legalized adult use cannabis without question across the board. So you are now also tying expungement into that conversation, where you have hundreds of thousands of people who are able to get their records removed, victims of the war on drugs specifically. You're also allowed to have a 12-plant home grow, which is very important for those in the access community. So much of the work that we do comes out of the medical program that we started years ago. You have about 800,000 folks in that market. And what I wanted to do to kind of set the stage is just to give context on what I've seen this year happen in the adult use and medical expansion market. And I think that'd be relevant when we talk about how do we look at vertical integration and non-vertical integration, i.e., where are the places you should be thinking in terms of investment, and then how does crypto play into that, just very briefly. As you know, there's another country that's not too far from here, but really, really close to Michigan, Canada, where it's totally federally legal, just across the board from coast to coast. The relevance of that is significant when you think about crypto companies and you think of companies being able to go public on the Canadian stock market. A lot of the folks that you're seeing play in this space are also publicly traded on the stock market and doing business as entities in this country. So it's important to understand where some of the capital is coming from. In terms of what I've seen kind of down the line, if you followed our system, which is federated state by state, meaning you've had some big legislative wins, but you've also had some ridiculous setbacks that shouldn't be happening in terms of what the regulatory market looks like. So huge win that happened this year from the legislative perspective. I don't know if you watched, Illinois was able to go through the legislative process and become the first state to actually legalize adult use, and at the same time, make it so that not only was expungement at the forefront of that, the equity lens, but that in setting up where those funds would go from the adult use market, you have 25% of the state sales tax going directly to victims of the war on drugs. They set up a fund called the Restoring Our Communities Fund. And a huge shout out to State Senator Toy Hutchinson, who from Chicago is the leader on that. There were 4 state senators that did that, all moms, all destigmatizing the product, and it was incredible to see that done. So now, moving towards the east, you had the big push in New York and New Jersey to try to get it done. New Jersey is from today until the end of the year, renewing their push. Although they expanded their medical program, they were not able to get the adult use done in the first session, but it might happen towards the end of this year, so pay attention for that in New Jersey. New York, huge headlines a couple weeks ago where they were able to decriminalize the components of the market. It's really unfortunate that they weren't able to get it done, because that potentially could have been, from a financial perspective, as you know, so much of markets being there, so much of opportunity being there, could have been huge, but they were not able to do that. I often say, as this next legislative cycle comes up, you should be very wary of the total decriminalization without legalization, because as you know, in a lot of states that are partisan across this country, they've coupled the package of folks getting their rights back, folks getting their restorative justice back with that legalization path. So it's the only way it's been very palatable. A state that's very important to look at from the kind of partisan perspective, lastly, before getting into the financial component, is Florida. So the Florida market, which is massive, and it's a bit, it's actually liberal in terms of the ability to deliver across the state, different counties, has also at the same time totally taken away the ability of any restorative justice measures to be mentioned in their expansion program, which is very unfortunate. At the same time, there's a ballot initiative that's out there which will pass 70% that could be on the 2020 ballot. So you've got these competing scales of what to do, which brings us directly into, I think, what's directly important to everyone here on this component is, where are the financial opportunities, where are the investment opportunities as I see fit from the perspective of having traveled across the country this last year and being involved with the movement before leaving the legislature myself. 2 models that are really important for you to understand: vertical integration and non-vertical integration. So Florida, in a state that proclaims themselves to not pick winners or losers, and they're playing by the free market, allegedly, created a system where 6 operators essentially control the entire medical market. Some folks go as far as to say, it may or may not be a cartel model, right? The problem with that is when those businesses start to then invest their money, both politically, socially, any way you want to call it, there's no opportunity for folks who have been specifically targeted for this for the last 20 years to invest or become a part of the business. Whereas there may not be any license issues, there's no opportunity to invest. What we advocate for is a non-vertical opportunity kind of factor, where all the different components of the cannabis processing, cultivating, all those dispensaries, non-storefront facing dispensaries, all of those are able to be invested in, all of those are able to be tracked, and all of those are able to be opportunities, especially for folks in the crypto market. So that is kind of setting the stage, what's happening across the country, and what does that mean to us as folks who are interested in cryptocurrency. And I will pass the mic.
All right, thank you, Ian. So you talked about sort of practitioners in the space. So Lamar Wilson has recently made some investments in the space. So Lamar, take it from there.
Yeah, how you all doing? My name is Lamar Wilson. I love patient, consistent togetherness. So patience was a real good one. Because the cannabis guy on the end down there, he didn't talk about the baby cousin, which is what I like to talk about. Does anybody know what hemp is? That's the baby cousin, right? It's the cousin that most people don't like to talk about. They don't understand it all the way. But at the same time, I think that hemp can actually provide equity faster for our people because you can grow it pretty much anywhere based on the Farm Bill, right? You actually can sell it anywhere right now pretty much if you look at all the laws. Hemp is, you can do a lot with it right now without having to jump through all of the regulatory hurdles. You just have to get a license, and in many states, you just need to be registered. So I'm Lamar Wilson, and I have a company called SunJoin, and what we're doing is creating a network of cultivators, distributors, processors, and we're all working together. Together we're better. You guys saw me probably last year, the people that were here. I was talking about cryptocurrencies and how they could free us. And I mean, it's just like perfect storm. The fact that we have cryptocurrencies from a freedom standpoint, and then the Farm Bill passes in December, and now we have hemp that allows us to actually have control of a natural renewable resource for the first time as African Americans. Now think about that, right? We talked about Africa, and the ambassador from the African Union, she always talks about the number of resources that are in Africa. In the United States of America, how many natural resources do we have control over? Exactly. But we can control hemp. Hemp has so many byproducts. You all probably heard of CBD, right? But then you can make plastics, you can make building materials, you can make clothes. And when you start to think about it, this is a crop that actually allows you to begin to invest in sustainability. And I heard the panel up earlier that was talking about what does black wealth look like? Well, wealth to me looks like sustainability. We should invest in sustainability. A lot of times we invest to get more money, but why are we getting the money? We're getting the money so that we can be sustained through food and all the other things that we necessarily need. If we invest our money into sustainability, now all of a sudden we don't need as much money. You get what I'm saying? So hemp is an actual crop that provides that, and hemp and crypto together, it changes the game for us. And if we understand where we are right now from a historical standpoint of having this type of control, from an African American standpoint, from people who are on a lower socioeconomic scale, those farmers that have had struggling farms, if we start to learn that we can take this crop and empower ourselves through vertical integration in that sector, man, I'm telling you, it's powerful. And I know everyone loves to talk about the big cousin because he's flashy and he plays rock and roll. You know what I'm saying? But Lil Cuz is in the juke joints playing the blues, right? And it's coming. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, and then I of course we'll have some more questions. But
Yeah, so Corey, you're also a grower, so what's your perspective?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, guys. I'm Corey Barnett. I don't know how long my partners up here have been in the industry, but I've been in the industry as a licensed operator since 2008. And in 2008, we can only find 2 minority-owned licenses that predate mine. And with that, I was I was a part of Initiative 71 here in Washington, D.C., wherein via referendum we actually legalized cannabis. That's not what's really important. What's really important is that was the very first time in our country that we had stepped up as a people inside of Washington, D.C., or inside anywhere in the country, and used decriminalization as a reason for why you should legalize cannabis. In other words, we put the question to black politicians and to the black power elite, which would you rather have? Continued prohibition of cannabis or letting black men out of jail? And for the first time, no one was really able to make that argument in a credible way. But here's an opportunity for you to cast a vote. And we sat down and we had conversations with ministers, we had conversations with grandmothers, we had conversations with fathers, we had conversations with people in the community, and we said, we all know that the war on drugs is being unjustly used against us. And regardless of how you feel about cannabis, cannabis is in your community. And the only reason why you don't have someone in your alley selling Jack Daniels is because you've regulated alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to get it out of the darkness, and if you want to get it out of the street corner, and if you want to get my cousin and my brothers out of jail, then cast this vote, regardless of how you feel about the product. And it was a very credible argument that later on got used in almost every state that has tried to decriminalize and to pass a cannabis law, because the dividing line and the movement was actually stuck in 2010, 2011, and 2012 at the lines of the black community. And so we were able to build that kind of an argument and actually make for some change that is actually having some very positive effects. Like here in Washington, D.C., when we were able to get decriminalization to actually happen, we went from locking up 2,420 brothers and sisters the year before to less than 167 the year after. Now that's life-changing, right? That's life-changing. And to be able to accomplish that with cannabis, and to then step back and say, well, you know, our community has a real opportunity to actually benefit from a real presence in an industry where we've always had a presence, right? And we've been in the, let's call it the illicit market for quite some time, right? But now you have literally the creation of billionaires while they're writing the laws in a way that we can't participate, right? That's incredible when you think about it, right? Our firm has been very active in trying to make sure that that doesn't happen right here in Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is currently the only city in the country where you have 50% black people in the city, and you have more than 50% of the dispensaries are black owned. It is the only place where that exists, and it's largely because we have managed in the district to step up and actually create a model that is designed by the people and does not benefit you solely because you have money or solely because you have been in the industry for 20 years, you know, or anything like that, but more so benefits you because you have been a resident in this district and you've been living in an area that has been hit hard by the war on drugs. And so if we're going to create opportunities in this community, you should have an access, you should have an opportunity to be a part of that community. How does that relate to cryptocurrency, right? You know, because that's kind of what we're here to talk about. My firm and I, we've also been working on a platform that is, you know, because both the hemp industry and the cannabis industry are largely analog, meaning, and what I mean by that is almost all transactions take place because either somebody picked up the phone or somebody was standing face to face and somehow we shook hands. But I have never seen a forward contract in either hemp or in cannabis. I've never seen a futures contract. I've never seen any sort of formal, long-lived, documented supply agreement that exists in a substantial way, right? So what we've done is we've created this platform that allows wholesale transactions taking place between producers, growers, and retail establishments, dispensaries, or whatever you want to call them, depending on what state you're in, to actually conduct business and for the first time to begin to actually trade the commodity without actually taking possession of the commodity. Meaning that if my brother here is a grower and he has 5,000 pounds of, say, sour diesel, and my brother here is a dispensary and he needs 50 pounds of sour diesel but wants to get it, you know, 10 pounds a month for the next 10 months or 5 months, then he can go on to the exchange and actually make that order without having to actually pick the phone up, and the exchange will handle it. The exchange will insure it. The exchange will do everything except flow the funds. And the only reason that the exchange can't flow the funds is because banks won't bank the exchange. But the technology is such that we have the ability to actually allow businesses to pay their bills. So if I need to send a check to the plumber, you can send a check to the plumber. If I can do all this, blockchain solves that. You know, cryptocurrency solves that problem. And there are several technology platforms in need of the very same sort of money service business approach. And so, you know, my perspective, or I think the cannabis industry's perspective on cannabis, on cryptocurrency, I mean, is not necessarily as much about security as it is about track and trace. And obviously you need to be secure on the platform that you use for track and trace, but it's more so about being able to digitize cash and having a place to conduct business, record the fact that that business has been conducted, and then make sure that the funds get transferred to one other person's account and that they can then obviously decouple and get back to the fiat at whatever point in time they need to. And then lastly, states are really looking at these kinds of platforms because they're having a problem collecting taxes. They're changing laws because they're in pursuit of money. However, they're not able to actually get the money because the businesses can't digitize cash. And you see a lot of technology starting to take place right now. There's a company out there called Expo Financial, owned by this guy that is, for all intents and purposes, highly likely to not be in business in 6 months simply because he's not capitalized well. Owned by a brother, has a money service business platform, digitizes cash in almost any and every state, but unfortunately can't seem to raise capital because of a background that has been haunting him related to a drug charge in the past. So it's interesting to see how this all comes full circle.
All right.
But we've been around since 2008. I'm happy to be here, and I'll give it back to the moderator.
All right. Thank you, guys. I think it's time for questions. If there's a burning question, let's just have one question. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So I actually live in Florida, which but so one thing that I question or kind of started considering is I know that we pay a lot of attention in terms of the legal aspects and some of the financial aspects, but whether the insurance companies are starting to come forward. And that's a big issue in terms of Florida, as though it is medically available. The actual doctors themselves are charging $200, $300 per visit, and that's before you even get into actually purchasing whatever you need to purchase.
Right.
So I'm wondering if because I just haven't heard the conversation too much as to whether the insurance companies are starting to buy in as well as legislation is changing.
So all of that, to your point, is happening right now. The state legislature in Florida meets for 60 days straight, starting in January. So right now, it's like the load-up phase where all legislators are allowed to have contact with different people who are part of different industries, from lobby folks to activists to the activist community, the patients. All those folks are having those conversations now from Cali and catching all the legislators while they're home in their district. What's happened is that they're going to open up the expansion bill. The medical bill is going to be expanded. So a lot of the leadership are seeing this as, from a polling perspective, important on both sides. The issue at hand in terms of insurance, there's a lot of folks from the regulated market who are ready to move into there. Confer is one of the largest insurance operators, but you have to remember, folks who are good at it in certain states have to get licensed in a separate state because there's no federated model. You have to be based in that state to be able to actually make that insurance product available. But again, at the same time, there's an adult use ballot initiative that has been filed with the federal court. The language directly models the medical bill. So the likelihood of that passing, if it's placed on the 2020 ballot, they need 470,000 signatures, is like 70, 80%, which at the point, you have to remember, that's a presidential election year. You'd imagine from the White House here, there'd be a call down to the governor saying, hey, we can't have 250,000 extra people coming out to vote for one issue. So, that's exactly what happened in Michigan. It was on the governor ballot, and 120,000 extra voters came out, largely put the Democrat in the office. So when you think of those things that kind of create a crosswind, what's going to happen is they're going to very closely watch what happens the next 2 weeks coming up with the state's bill that's happening in the U.S. Congress. There's a vote that's expected to happen on that, which would then push it to the Senate to allow for federal banking. If you see that get enough bipartisan votes, which they're up to like almost 300 sponsors out of 435, very, very strong, then you'll see all those folks swoop in to not only make larger the insurance product available for the medical, but to prepare to mirror that in the adult use that's likely going to happen in the state of Florida relatively soon.
Can I make a quick statement? And this isn't about insurance or anything, because I know my man's coming to Sandman us off. What I wanted to say is, though, one good thing about all of this, right, is that we're in a position right now to actually be at the forefront of something. Like, just keep thinking about that. Know that we're at the forefront of cryptocurrency. We're at the forefront of the cannabis industry. And another thing I wanted to say is that right now, because marijuana is not legal federally, that there aren't many places for you to be and invest. But you can invest with us at SunJoin. WeFunded.com/SunJoin. Join over 500 people investing in the industrial hemp industry right now. And I wanted to say that because that allows you to have equity in what we're doing as well, and join the network even if you're not a farmer or a distributor or something like that. So thank you guys, man, for having us up here. And
We got
appreciate
time for
it.
one more
There's
question.
somebody back in the back.
We got time for one more?
Yeah, we'll take that question real quick. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh.
And what happens when you start to make a lot of money with your hemp? What I've seen with the tobacco and the cotton, the revenue people then come in and decide you can't have the 10 stalks instead of 15, and they make you cut down to 10.
Yep.
So my question is to be, what kind of regulation or what kind of policies are you trying to put in place to make sure that you can stop that?
So here's the thing. The way we're stopping it is by being decentralized. The fact that we have farmers across the country, if your state comes in and does that, we have farmers in Tennessee that can still help out the network to allow you to still be equitable, right? So we diversify our farms across the country that allows us then to have, geographic diversity, so we don't have to worry about not only political issues, but also weather issues, right? Like hurricanes, tornadoes. So that's the whole point of us working together. If you look at the SunJoin slogan, it's together we're better, and we really mean that, right? We literally are better by working together. And so when those types of things come, we are able to move throughout the network and be able to benefit people where they are. Like right now in Georgia, you can't grow the crop, right? But you can do a lot of selling of the crop. So those people who are in Georgia, most people don't even know that. Go look in your laws. You can sell hemp products in Georgia, but most people don't know that you can do that, right? Because they're like, oh, we can't grow it, so we can't sell it. Those people in Georgia can sell right now, and those people who want to grow have to just wait for the law to come up for growing it.
I want to kind of touch on that question because some of these same kinds of issues we see in the cannabis industry. You'll all of a sudden have rules and regulations that seek to regulate how much canopy you can have, and which at the same time is regulating just how much you can grow and how much money you can make and the different products you can sell and who can sell, who can't sell. You see a lot of that. The only way for you to defend what it is you want to do is to not only be there when the law is changed, but be there every time the regulations are being touched. Because they will write the law broadly and in a way that we can all accept it, right? But it's the regulations, that's where the deed gets dirty, and that's where the money gets made. And so you have to be in the room and know your state legislatures, know your local legislature, and make sure that they are advocating fully cognizant that whatever they do or don't do is going to affect how you vote next time. And so we, along the line of cannabis, as a people, we actually need to make this a very central issue in who we support and who we don't support.
I would add to that just lastly, the separation between the hemp market and the cannabis market. Hemp is federally legal in, I think, 47 states. The difference is cannabis is not. And so when you're talking about diversifying in either of those markets, you have to remember, because we don't have a federated model, it's state by state on how you can protect yourself from insurance liability. Lastly, something incredibly important we need to be focused on is right now the only place that cannabis and the results of it can be federally studied is in Mississippi. I believe it's at Ole Miss. That's the only university where they can study it. And aside from it being, a bad product, they're not fully expanding on the totality of our research capabilities. We've got so many HBCUs that could be benefiting from this directly, and we need to be pushing our legislators on all levels to open up where testing facilities are able to be, ran through.
Let's have a big hand for the Afro-Tech intellectuals. Ian Connors, Lamar Wilson, and Corey Barnett. Give them another round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen. I mean, you know, you could go on and on with questions, right? One question leads to the next.